What's up, Fanny? It's your main man, Dr. Life. 2019 is a very special year. Very special year. You see the shirt. It says break the cycle. Break the cycle. We've been breaking negative cycles. We've been breaking negative cycles for over 20-something years. The negative cycles of crime, poverty, break the cycle of generational curse of poverty, break the cycle of the revolving door of the prison industrialized complex, the revolving door of recidivism that has targeted our men and women like livestock. Chattel slavery. Chattel slavery was converted into a different form, from plantation to college campus NCAA, college campus recruiting ground, breeding ground for peonage, where you get paid less than what you're worth and generate massive sums of insane amount of revenue and income for the so-called elite that then tell you that we giving you a piece of paper that you're going to get a degree. That's called peonage. I ain't asked for no degree. Pay me what I'm worth. God's child. Pay me what I'm worth. You want to put me on your screen? You want to put me on your billboard? You want to put my name in lights? Pay me what I'm worth. You ain't got. You don't possess. They don't possess the wealth and the finances to pay you what you're worth. So instead, they created a system that is our job to break. A system of money changers who capitalize on dehumanization economically. Code. Capitalize on dehumanization economically. And yes, we have generation after generation of elders and adults that have failed. We love y'all dearly, but have failed. Failed to see the same insane trap, insane cycles. But we're part of the generation that, unlike Solomon's father was called to bring a new cycle to the lost children of Israel. You heard me. David was chosen to bring a new cycle. And instead of continuing and perpetuating that cycle, like Joseph did for Jacob, Joseph was faithful to the handoff that Jacob gave him. Solomon was totally unfaithful. I know some of y'all won't want to refer to, oh, well, he built the temple. And the words say the race is not given unto the swift. The race ain't given unto the swift. It ain't about how you start off in the beginning. It ain't about how when you up under your father's roof as a young person, under your mama's roof. That don't count. What counts is, what you do in the dark when ain't nobody looking. And Solomon proved the moment he got out from, and he received everything. He got to choose whatever he wanted. He chose wisdom. He wasn't specific enough. He was not specific enough. Because he fell in the camp of the astrologers, the soothsayers, the necromancers, the sodomizers, the worldly wise men. Today, y'all call them geniuses. In that day, they called them the genii. Today, y'all call them magicians. In that day, they called them the magi. He wasn't specific. That's the problem. Y'all run around here talking about the gospel. What gospel? Which gospel? Oh, Satan got a gospel. The plan of redemption. Which plan of redemption? That's why he said, my people who are called by my name, say my name. In God we trust. What God? Oh, Solomon proved what God? He had 300 wives, 700 concubines, and worshiped a different God with each and every one of them. So the wisdom that he chased after, that's the word, chase. That's why they gave y'all that bank, Chase Bank, because y'all chasing. The wisdom he chased after was the worldly wise men, and he got it. I will give you the desires of your heart. Now, on the other hand, we like Elisha. Half of y'all don't even know who the heck Elisha is. Elisha got the same choice that Solomon got. And Elijah wasn't even his daddy. He was his spiritual daddy. And that's what it's all about. You choose your father. You choose your covenant. And Elijah was the man who was connected with the Most High, the same man who went and challenged. No, who was challenged the same way you being challenged, the same way our forefathers have been being challenged and have been failing, fumbling the ball. Elijah didn't fumble. Ahab and Jezebel challenged the throne of God in Judah. Ahab and Jezebel challenged the covenant of God, challenged the everlasting gospel of God, challenged. They said, we will sit on the throne of Judah and we will lead the people to worship other gods. That's the challenge, Rome's challenge, all day, every day. And our fathers have been fumbling. But thank God, he said, I will always have a remnant amongst our fathers, amongst our forefathers. I'm specifically talking about in my root Godhead family group. There are some fathers who have separated themselves and have stood like Elijah, Frank E. Leggett III, my biological father, being one of them. While many other in his so-called brotherhood of preachers and ordained ministers think it's okay to become one of the priests of Ahab and Jezebel of your day, which is Rome. The Pope and his bride, the whore, Babylon, is Jezebel. The Pope himself is Ahab. And they are ministers of, so-called ministers of the cloth in every single denomination on the globe, doing exactly what the men of Judah did when Ahab and Jezebel challenged God's covenant, God's gospel, God's throne in his capital city. Lost. How did Elijah respond? You're gonna come holler at me. We about to play the same game we about to play today. King of the mountains. King of kings of the mountain. Capture the flag. He said, meet me on Mount Carmel. And before we go to Mount Carmel, to show you who I am connected to, it ain't gonna rain for 3 years. The prosperity of y'all Chase Manhattan Bank merchants ends, dries up. You will see no wealth. All of Jerusalem. Everything gonna die. This just to let the people know y'all can follow these fools if you want to. The prosperity, the hardship, the bankruptcy, the 2008 and 2009, the so-called lies of the Donald Trump administration that the economy is getting good and they're about to hit you with another financial crisis again. Okay. Y'all keep playing around, following around these so-called evangelical Christians, these so-called right-wing conservative. Let these liberal, they throw these terms around. They all in the same camp. Liberal, conservative, right-wing, what Christian, non-denominational, all of these terms, none of them means nothing. And Elijah stood up, but Elijah ain't even the point. Elijah was like David, called and chosen. God always calls his faithful out from among the lost. It's always two categories. The masses have always been lost, and he has always had a faithful root in his covenant in amongst the lost to lead the lost back home. And y'all run around here acting like y'all could follow the masses. Y'all could say what the masses say. Y'all could worship how the masses worship. Y'all could do all the things that the masses do. And the only thing you're going to do is the same insanity that the masses have always done, been lost. And after Elijah did what he did, brought judgment on the heads of Ahab, Jezebel, and all of those priests. And he told all of the people, choose ye this day whom you will serve. If God be God, serve God. The Most High God. Yahshua, Emmanuel, Shiloh. The Word of God. The Creator. Michael, Emmanuel. If Baal be God, and he used a specific name, the sun god that y'all all worship. Today, I'm talking about today, Baal worship prevails. That's what Christianity, that's what all of these faiths and belief systems are. I'll show it to you. Baal worship. And after Elijah showed the people, y'all lost. He was so faithful, God sent the chariots of fire to take him home to the kingdom. To let him know, even amongst the lost, my people are to remain righteous and faithful. And don't y'all get up here in the last days and be preaching that we all are sin and sin. We all are born in sin, shaping in iniquity. We all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There's none righteous but one. Yo, he has always been talking in verses like that to the lost. He ain't talking about the faithful and the righteous. And he told you himself, I have not come to call the righteous, but the wicked. But y'all go, my father's fumbling the ball, getting up there preaching like ain't no separation and no division. He told you, I will put enmity between my seed and the serpent seed. So when I separate my seed and when I come and say, I have not come to call the righteous, my righteous remnant who has always been faithful on this earth, unblemished. He said, no, I don't need, the sick have need of a physician, not the well, not the good and perfect. Every good and perfect gift comes down from above, from the Father of lights. My children that shine for me are good and perfect. It's time to be quiet, my fathers. Time to go back and study and research. Time to get back in tune. Time to go sit down in the upper room and be quiet and be still. Stop fumbling the ball. And Elisha knew this. Elisha saw that his father, his spiritual father, was totally different than them priests and them Levites. His spiritual father was totally different from the king, from everybody. His spiritual father was the remnant, was the righteous, was the faithful. His spiritual father had something that they did not have. His spiritual father was able to walk. His spiritual father was able to talk to the Most High, and the Most High responded with fire. When 850 prophets of Baal danced around all day and talked to Satan and talked to Satan and talked to Satan, sacrificed to Satan, cut themselves all day, Satan got no power. His people have no power. Demonstrated in front of all of the people. Well, David had done the same thing with his God. Demonstrated in front of all of the people time and time again, and his son still came and chose Baal. Not Elisha. Not Elisha. God was trying to take Elijah to heaven. Elisha wouldn't leave him. God told Elijah, yo, go up on that hill. He said, okay, son, you good. You can go back. I'm going to go over here and pray. He like, I'm coming with you. I got to that hill. God said, okay, Elijah, go over to that hill. All right, son, you good. You go on back to the people. I'm going to go over here and pray. I'm coming with you. I'm going to pray with you. Finally, the Lord was like, yo, ask him what he want, man. It's time to go. Ask him what he want. He said, my son, what do you want? He said, if I have found favor in the Lord's eyes, give me a double portion of your spirit. And Elijah said, yo, it ain't my decision. It ain't my choice. Because it was a gift to me. But if the King of Kings, if your daddy honors your request, you will see me when they come to gather me and take me home. And sure enough, Elisha, and there were other prophets there who witnessed Elisha's statement. Behold, there the chariots of fire. And then Elijah's cloak dropped. Elisha picked the cloak up. His robe dropped, picked the cloak up, spun it around, and hit the Jordan River, and the waters parted. Elijah did the same thing when they came across the Jordan, hit the Jordan rivers with his cloak. This was God's way of saying, I honored your prayer. And Elisha went forward and led the people. Unlike Solomon led the people into the wickedness that preceded Ahab and Jezebel. Elisha led the movement of leading the people back to God, which preceded Hezekiah. David's son who returned the children of God. That's what happens when our forefathers stay faithful. What y'all got to understand, there has always been two divisions. There has always been a first fruits blessing and a first fruits birthright. And there has always been a first fruits of the living. Adam and Eve, the mother of the living. Eve was called the mother of the living. And when Christ died and rose, he said, I am the first fruits of the dead. That second covenant, the Abraham covenant, first fruits of the dead, the first fruits of the lost, the birthright of the lost. And the birthright of the lost is the covenant that has to be grafted in, because God said there is only one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one first fruits, one birthright. The lost have to be grafted back in to the good and perfect, everlasting gospel root. But all our fathers know how to teach in every spiritual. All they know how to teach from is the lost first fruits and the lost birthright. So I've been putting in work in Central Florida. Paramore Kids Zone. This is the first neighborhood we started working in when we landed down in Florida. The Paramore Kids Zone. Mayor Dyer. This area for community outreach receives funding because of the work of this lady. She created the Paramore Kids Zone, Miss Tony Shin, with this community outreach organization, CCSI. This is Miss Tony Shin's card. This from when I very first sat down with Miss Tony Shin, 2000 and had to be 2008, 10 years ago, 2009. And this was my good and perfect gift to Miss Tony Shin in the Paramore Kids Zone. They wanted to create a teen shack, a place where they had already received money. Dwight Howard gave them $20,000. The mayor gave them money, and they was creating, raising the babies in the PKZ. I'm down. What better place to go and break the cycle than in the PKZ where they trying to raise the babies? So now I have Pastor Lewis, who was formerly of Solomon's Porch, who has been given the same burden that I was given over 10 years ago to go into the PKZ. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I have to be faithful for the talents that have been given to me. Each and every talent that has been given to me. The PKZ is not the only neighborhood that we've been working in. We've been working in Washington Shores with Mount Sinai Saves, with Pastor Ken Unick, the community outreach services, Mount Sinai Saves. We've been working in Pine Hills for years. Pine Hills community, Evans High School, Pine Hills, one of the most notorious neighborhoods in West Orlando. Middlebrook Middle School. It's a mentoring program where we had the same stuff that we gave to Miss Tony Shin. Elder Thaddeus Jackson from Patmos Chapel. Unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. due to complications due to cancer. We had a mentoring program attached to Elder Thaddeus Jackson's mentoring program. He taught at Middlebrook and went to Patmos, was the first elder at Patmos. Now, Pastor James Doggett, one of the ministers who helped raise me, at Patmos Chapel, has inherited that relationship in Pine Hills, has inherited that relationship with Middlebrook Middle School. We also been going to Haiti in connection with 2 churches that's in the Apopka area. The Mount Olive Church, through my main man, Tone Andrews and Ian Carmona, and my other man, Arashine, who worships at the Florida Hospital Church. So 4 corners. And then the Break the Cycle commission that our father had given us when we came down from Chicago, when we came down from Huntsville, Alabama. That's 5. That's 5 specific talents. 5, the talents, the parable of the 5 talents. He said, anybody who buries a talent in the sand will be cast out where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So before we could move forward, we had to let our people know what you're getting into. Before we could move forward with the new effort out of the Paramore Kids Zone, you have to know what the roots that we planted there. And before we can merge and make an acquisition of future work, it's a time and place to go higher. The disciples were sent into the upper room and told to stand still and stand down and just be still, because the Creator was trying to take them higher. Why was the Creator trying to take him higher? Because the disciples and the children of Israel in the Creator's day was in the same identical scenario that they were in Ahab and Jezebel's day. The Creator came and was the Elijah of his day, because the people were being led by the Ahab. Herod, King Herod was Ahab. His wife was Jezebel. His daughter was Jezebel the second, who beheaded John the Baptist. And the disciples had been raised up in that trash. The disciples had been taught that trash. All of the people had swallowed the form of godliness and had no power. And at the Last Supper, God told them in the upper room, after he dismissed Judas, he said, you can't even, listen, you are beyond saving. Go and do, you've made your choice, because the choices you've made. And we have ministers, ordained ministers, who claim to be of the same brotherhood that my father is a part of, who, just like Judas and all of these spiritual faiths, have these last day Judases among them, who are beyond reproach, who are walking and talking just like the disciples of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but are cutting deals behind the scenes with the dragon's children. And the dragon's children turned out to be the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Y'all ain't hearing me. The same Pharisees and the same Sadducees and the same Romans. Rome's challenged, the same Romans who have placed themselves on a spiritual pedestal of today. who masquerade as if they are the moral authority. And evangelical Christianity and right-wing conservative and all of these faiths across the globe have said, yo, we accept them as our moral leader and our moral authority. It's the same scenario all over again. And what did the master tell the disciples? I'm going to a place and you can't come with me. And the Jews can't come either. You got to be cleansed. So here we are going through the same cleansing, same process.